and gentlemen, what a treat we have in store here on the Sports Report, the number one global sports show. And this is a personal one for us here, ladies and gentlemen, because we're actually getting the chance to talk with somebody who's involved with Sportinarium, the number one global radio station, which we have had the good fortune to be on now for the past 5 months with. And he's also the co-host of the Spartans Boxing Show, which is coming off a huge show last week with former world champion James Hare. And he, in his own right, was a pretty decorated fighter. And he fought, get this, ladies and gentlemen, 100 times. If I would have fought one time, I would have been lucky. And on top of that, he fought 57 fighters who at one point in their career were unbeaten. He fought 14 British champions. He fought 20 fighters who were considered contenders, and he was considered also to be first black British boxer to fight 100 times. I don't know if we can ever top this one, ladies and gentlemen, but we are going to try. But without further ado, here on the Sports Report, the number one global sports show, the co-host of the Spartans Boxing Show here on Sportinarium. Oh!
Hello, Tom. How are you, sir?
How you doing, my friend Arv?
I am doing fantastic, Tom. I'm doing absolutely brilliant. And thank you for having me on your show. You know, I am so happy about that,
Absolutely.
Coming on to have a talk with you, Tom, I've been looking forward to this for a while.
Me too.
Yes,
me
I
too.
have. I've been really looking forward to it. When you got me on, I was so happy, to be on here. I thought, Lakey asked me the other day, he said, is Tom got back to you? I said, no. I thought you forgot, So I've been waiting for you to get back in contact to see when you're going to get me on your show. So I was so happy when you
Well, we wanted to build up to this.
We
wanted to build up for this, and we've been talking about it for a while, but obviously our schedule here on the Sports Report got in the way, and we had spoke with a couple of different fighters that the station has been promoting, so we had to take care of business here on behalf of the station, but we couldn't think of a better time than to have you, my friend. And before we get into your career here, and there's a lot to dive into about it, and for a worldwide audience listening here on Sportinarium, since you've been involved with Sportinarium pretty much since its inception, talk to us on how you got involved with Sportinarium.
It's amazing. Believe it or not, Tom, I've been friends with Trevor Lake, for a very, very long time. Speaking to him on Twitter, we've always been friends on Twitter for quite a few years. And, the funny thing is, Thomas, I've never met him in person, How about that then? I've never met him in person, but we've always been friends on social media. So, he was the one who decided to make his idea with the Sportinarium. And he asked me if I wanted to join. And I said, yes, I was happy to join and do it with him. And so far, it's been doing very, very well. So we do interviews together, me and Lakey, and we've interviewed quite a few people, and it's been quite successful,
Absolutely. I mean, I look at the Spartans Boxing Show that you and Lakey have, and I know Steve has been joining in also, and huge shout out to Steve as well, who does his own show also, the Eagles Nest Club show here on Sportinarium, and talk about our audience that hasn't got a chance to listen yet to the Spartans Boxing Show on what they can expect.
Oh, they can expect more big things for people who haven't listened to it yet. We've got a lot more things happening with the Sparta. I mean, like you say, it's only been 4 or 5 months, but we've got a lot more things happening with this, and it's going to be absolutely brilliant, and a lot more people to interview. Thomas, we've got quite a few more interviews to do in the foreseeable future, Yeah, we're expecting things, big things. Me and Lakey, like I said before, as you know, it's only been going 5 months, but you got to give it time, haven't you? You can't expect it to just sort of rise straight away like that. We just got to keep going and keep going. That's all we can do. That's the best way to build these sort of things, isn't it? Just keep going, and with keep going at it, you'll have success. We seem to be doing well, and we have interviewed some quite big names. Me and Lakey, some very big names, and past and present.
Some very big names, and one of those big names that you guys just interviewed on last week's show was a pretty big fighter in his own right. He looks like he could still get in the ring, and after hearing the interview that you guys had with him, I almost think he was thinking about it, and that's former world champion James Hare. I mean, talk about talking with James Hare and what that was.
He was a fantastic fighter. You know what? Like you said, by the sound of things, he's thinking of getting back in the ring. I think he's quite capable because we did. Thomas, he did retire quite early. In his career, he retired very, very early, and I don't know what's happening, but there might be a chance that he might get back in. I mean, he was one of these fighters what never got it. He probably could have still carried on. It wasn't like his career had finished or nothing. I think he just thought to himself, it's time to call it a day. And what he'd done, he moved to another country where he's still training and he's still helping people along. And he has given the thought, maybe I can get back in there, and maybe I will get back in there. So who knows? He may do it at one time. You never know.
No, you definitely never know. I mean, listen, here was a guy that retired at a relatively young age in his early 30s, and he's still in good shape. And we see it all the time with fighters. I mean, Oscar De La Hoya is apparently getting back in the ring, so this does happen, and you know a thing or two about that. But I want to go back to Sportinarium very quickly. And you had a long career as a fighter. Yeah. You fought 100 times, and yet now everything's come full circle, Arv, where now you're in the media. You're covering boxing. You're with the station. We now have Lakey as a promoter. He has his license with the British and Irish Boxing Authority. You ever take a step back and say to yourself, wow, I'm actually in the media covering boxing, and the station's had so much success with that? I mean, is that something you stop and think about?
Yeah, I do. I really do. You know what, Thomas? This only happened by accidentally, but it's like it was something what was meant to happen. How strange, isn't it? It's very strange. I like talking about boxing. I do. I got a job, Thomas, where I work. I work for Network Rail, and sometimes when I'm with the guys, I'm always talking about boxing, and they said, "You're all right. You're always talking about boxing. Why don't you get involved and do something with that as well as working here?" Always talking about it. And you know what? It's funny, ain't it? Funny how I got involved with this with Lakey. How he got me involved with it. Sometimes I think, Thomas, in life, sometimes things happen for a reason, because who would have thought that Lakey would have thought about that and get me involved with him to interview fighters? How about that? It's something that I like doing. I like to talk about boxing. That's all it's ever been about with me. I'm not bothered about nothing else. I like to talk about boxing. And Lakey asked me, would I get on this with him and interview fighters? I said, I'd love that. And I said, I'll never let you down. I'll always be there when you need me to do an interview with you. And I've always been there. If it's called me, I'm always there. So, it's just shocking. Things definitely happen for a reason. This is something that I've always wanted to do. So when he got me involved with him, I'll never forget him for doing that. And I've told him as well, because I really enjoyed something I love doing, talking to fighters past and present. It's something that I've always liked, always loved. And, Tom, even though I was a fighter, I'm a big boxing fan, and I've always been a big boxing fan. So it's good to be involved. And I'll never forget, Lakey, for what he's done, Thomas. I don't know what made him think to get me involved. You know what I mean?
Well, I can see why, Arv. Listen, you are a very good speaker. You have a very accomplished background in the sport of boxing. So, listen, I couldn't think of a better person to be involved with him on the Spartans Boxing Show, which you can hear on Sportinarium, and you can also hear it on the Sportinarium TV YouTube page, which all you have to do is subscribe to @Sportinarium TV, where you can see Lakey and Arv interview a who's who of fighters, including a fighter we interviewed a couple of different times, and that's R.P. Davis, Carly Thumper Skelly. Also, the boys have spoken with. It is a who's who of people, and some of them we have even spoken with here on the Sports Report. That's why we're tremendously honored to be speaking with Arv Mittoo, who has done a phenomenal job in representing Sportinarium. He is one of the reasons why we are the #1 global radio station. We are honored to be speaking with him here, talking about all things related to his career and also Sportinarium. And Arv, I also want to go back to Sportinarium, especially when it comes to, we have an upcoming fight on April the 24th on Fight TV that our recently announced Sportinarium events is helping out. And we have another event also on September the 4th that we're promoting. And we just alluded to it that Lakey now has a license to be a boxing promoter on behalf of the British and Irish Boxing Authority.
That's right.
And talk about, Arv, how big this is for us, that we're behind the Lionesses event on April
It's absolutely
24th.
what I believe. We've never had nothing like this. It's an all ladies, on this card. It's an all ladies card, no men, women's only. And I believe there's never been anything like this. I was quite shocked when I was told there has never been nothing like this is in the whole of Europe. Am I right in saying that? We have never had a woman's all ladies card sort of thing. So, I was quite impressed about that. I thought, wow, myself when I was told. So apparently that is going to be fantastic. And I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be absolutely brilliant. The Ladies Lioness, which is going out on
April the 24th. That's going to be on Fight TV here. Yep. In fact,
that's right.
we just spoke with one of the fighters who's going to be on that card that I know that you guys recently spoke with also, and Nicola the Hurricane Hopewell. So we're very excited
Yes,
about this. And one of
that's
the
right.
other things
We spoke to her the other day.
one of the other things, Arv, that I really think is important about what we're doing here with this event and then the September the 4th event is that if you think about radio and you think about radio stations, I can't think of a radio station, Arv, that is actually doing something that what we're doing here at Sportinarium. In that we're not just a place where people put their podcast or people put their interviews on or we do our live streams. No, we're actually getting our feet wet and we're actually going out there and giving the people something. And I think that this is going to really set the standard and set the bar here because, in New York, sports talk radio is very big, as I'm sure you're aware of. But I can't think of a radio station in New York that would even think about or would even consider doing what we're doing here with the Lionesses event or Battle on the Beach or Sportinarium events. This is really groundbreaking. This is revolutionary. In my opinion, Arv, this is similar to what Vince McMahon did with WrestleMania because I think what Lakey is doing here with our station and going out there and promoting the Lionesses events and the Battle on the Beach event, this is going to be something we're going to look back 10 and 20 years on and say, wow, we were lucky. We got in on Sportinarium at the very beginning and it's going to take off. I mean, talk to me about your thoughts on that.
You know what? I'll tell you what, Tom. I'll tell you what. I've never known anybody to do anything like we are doing. I mean, I was saying to Lakey, I said, this is different. Tom, we have we got DJs, we're covering boxing, we're doing everything. We play live radio, music on the radio. It does absolutely everything, which is when you have everything's normally individual, but with this Sportarium radio, you got presenters, you got DJs, you cover boxing, we cover football, this Sportarium covers absolutely everything. And my thoughts on it is that I think it's absolutely amazing because I've never come across anything like this in my entire life or ever heard of anything. What does anything like this in my life?
No, listen, and that's the thing here, Arv, is that in New York, everything here is formatted. It's programmed that you only can talk a certain sport, a certain player. But Sportinarium, I think, very similar into what the Sports Report has been doing when we did it on our own before we joined Sportinarium, is that we talk about everything. We're Baskin Robbins. We have the 31 flavors. If you like DJ 80, we have that. If you like the Eagles Nest show, we have that. If you have women's fight news, you like that stuff, we have that. If you like what you guys are doing,
so
we have everything here at Sportinarium. We literally have everything. We're the only place, Arv, that has every single sport, every single thing you can imagine. And I think that this is why April 24th here on Fight TV with the Lionesses event that is going to be the icing on the cake of everything that we're doing here. But Arv, I want to get into it because obviously we've alluded to it at the top. Your career is as accomplished as anybody's in the sport of boxing. It's as accomplished as anybody's that we've ever had on here on this show in almost 2.5 years. So for a worldwide audience listening here, Arv, I've got to ask you, what got you into boxing?
Wow. Oh, check this one out, Tom. Very, very strange. Very, very strange. Tom, when I was a bit younger, to be quite honest, I done a lot of martial arts. But I was never very good with my hands. But with my legs, I was absolutely brilliant. Reason why I had good kicking techniques, I used to do a lot of gymnastics when I was younger. So I went to martial arts and I was a very, very good kicker. But I wasn't very good with my hands. So I went to an amateur boxing club to learn how to be good with my hands. My intentions wasn't to go and become a boxer. My intentions was just to get good with my hands and go back to martial arts, kickboxing, and do that. But what happened was, when I went to the boxing gym and I become pretty good with my hands, I decided that I'm going to stay here, stay there. And what it was, I lost a lot of weight also. So I ended up competing in amateur boxing. But that wasn't my intention. My intention was just to go there to learn to use my hands and go back to kickboxing. But as I went to boxing and I got good with my hands and lost a lot of weight, so I stayed there and fought amateurly. And I just ended up forgetting about the kickboxing and stayed there and become in love with it. Just carried on boxing and had quite a lot of fights in that. But yeah, it was never my intention to become a boxer, Tom. You know, that was never my intention. I was just meant to go there to get good with my hands and go back. But I fell in that much in love with it. I lost that much amount of weight as well. Because at the time I was probably about 12 stone and I ended up getting down to about 9 stone 8. You know, and I got that quick, I thought, oh, I'll just stay there. And I fell that much in love with it. I ended up fighting regular in the boxing, in the amateur boxing. I mean, even twice a week, fight on a Monday, fight on a Friday. I fought that regular. And I must have racked up like for 50 fights in about 3 or 4 years, you know, as an amateur. So when I got the taste of the amateur boxing, I thought, oh, I'll just stay here. I didn't bother going back to the kickboxing.
Well, you didn't need to go back to kickboxing because you did pretty well as a boxer. And I want to talk about something because I know that you had mentioned that you did kickboxing and there was some other things going on at the time. But why was your parents going to Jamaica when you were 16 important and in some ways maybe set on the path to where you became as a boxer?
Well, to be quite honest, you know, Tom, you know, I heard them talking about it for years. They wanted to go back. It wasn't so much my dad. It was my mum. She had enough of it being here, saying it was too cold and she couldn't take it anymore. And she wanted to go back. So, you know, when your mum and your dad are together, your dad will always take your mum's side. And I don't really think it was so much him what wanted to go back, but her. So he just followed her and he went back. But I think if he had his choice, he would have stayed here. But the fact that she wanted to go back is why he went back. And it was, you know, they had a hard time. You know, when they did go back, it wasn't all good there because as soon as they got there, there was, I don't know if you remember, there was an hurricane called Hurricane Gilbert. And as soon as they got there, within a few months, that smashed the whole of the place up. And it makes me wonder. I think I was in love with so much with going back to Jamaica and setting up there. It didn't work out right. If anything, it ended up really bad from, you know, being in a good position here and then going in there and struggling, you know. So it was probably not a good thing they'd done there, going back over there when they did go back. You know, they ended up worse off. They was all right, yeah. My dad worked.
I'm glad that he was all right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they should have gone. And I mean, Tom, you know, at the time I struggled real bad, and sometimes, Tom, I had times when I couldn't even eat, starving and stuff like that. But you know something, you know, Tom, because they brought me up well, you know, I weren't a bad person in the sense of being hungry and steal or anything. There's no excuse because there was times when I was hungry, but I never stole. I never got involved with police or nothing like that. You know, I was good as gold. You know, I'd done nothing wrong. I was never in trouble with any law, and never have I been in trouble with any law. And not sometimes people use that as an excuse, you know. But I did struggle and I did get hungry. But you know what? I've done nothing wrong with getting involved with any police or nothing like that. I just tried my best to do the best I can and be the best person I can.
Well, you definitely do that, my friend. And listen, I hope that you're not hungry now, because if you are hungry, just let us know. We will make sure to take care of that, and we'll make sure that Lakey pays you more for the Spartans boxing show. We'll make sure he gets you for it.
You know, it's funny, you know, Tom. I got a pal from school, and I was saying to him the other day, you know, I'd go around sometime and he'd give me a meal. And I say to him now, I said, you know, back then I was young and I was embarrassed to tell you this, but do you know when you gave me a meal, I was very grateful for it because I was starving. And then it's funny, I was starving and I'd come around your house and I'd get a meal. And he said to me, you know, I never ever knew that. He was saying the other day.
Well, it's funny. It's funny you say that. It's funny. Listen, life comes full circle, and I never forget it. In economics class in high school, I had a teacher, and the teacher always said to me, and I live by this to this day. He said, "There's two things that you want to have most. You want to have your health, and you want to have a few dollars in your pocket each day to be able to go have something to eat." So obviously, I've lived through that pretty much. It's kept me all right. I mean, not to say that I've been the most successful person on things, but I've done okay with that. that, but clearly you've had much more success, Arv. And I also want to talk for our worldwide audience listening here on Sportinarium. And what did the Nobby Knobs jib mean to you?
Oh, you know what? That fella was like a father to me. My dad left the country 1987. That guy was like a father. He tried to help you and put you in good stead. And at that time, Tom, I had a lot of problems. And he said, "What's the matter?" I said, "Oh, it's ain't been a very good day today." He'd try and put me right and say things. "Oh, listen, life is full of problems. You know what? You just got to try and do your best." These sort of things, when he was telling me, it helped. It really helped me listening to the things he said. He'd like to have a laugh and a joke, but what a gentleman he was. And he'd always try and help you. And you know what? He makes me laugh because, when I used to fight, he says, "Listen, what I like about Nobby Knobs, he teach you the art of defense." So, he'd put you in there with like really hard guys, knowing that you'd be able to handle yourself because he's taught you how to slip and roll and throw a left hook and not get hurt. What you say? "Oh, all I want you to do, I don't want you to get knocked out. I want you to walk in and I want you to walk back out." Because you see, how Nobby was, he'd like you to fight and then you could fight next week. You could fight every week. He didn't like you to get hurt. So Nobby would teach you art of defense. He put you in with some really tough guys, but he put you with hard guys, but he taught you to go in there, not get hurt, and walk out. I mean, don't get me wrong, Tom. You always get, we're not perfect, so you get your days, you get bad days sometimes when you go in and you didn't feel up to it, and you probably get stopped the odd time, get stopped on a cut. We're not perfect. Most of the time you walk in and you walk out. Very rare I got stopped. It was probably a case of I weren't feeling up to it, and I still went in. If I got stopped, or maybe I went in with a guy who was a few pounds heavier than me, and that shouldn't have happened because I was the weight below him, that sort of thing. But very, very rare I had any trouble.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are definitely not having a bad day by a long shot, because we're having one of those perfect days, because we are talking with one of our own here, and that's the co-host of the Spartans Boxing Show, who host here on Sportinarium, the #1 global radio station, as I am the host of the Sports Report, the Reverend Tom Bryson. For more information on the Sports Report, you can go to sportsreportx.com, and to listen to all of our archives, you can go to soundcloud.com/the Sports Report 2019, and you can now listen to our YouTube interviews on Sportinarium. You can do that by subscribing to the Sports Report, the #1 global sports show, where you can find Sports Report. As always, a huge shout out to the entire team here on Sportinarium, including Lakey, Sean, Susie, Steve, Sasha, everybody at Sportinarium, Martin, Connor, everyone at Sportinarium that has made us the #1 global sports show. And for more information on Sportinarium, you can go to sportinarium.com, where you can listen to the Sports Report Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays from 5 to 7 Eastern Time, 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. UK time. And you can also, most importantly as well, follow Sportinarium on Twitter and Instagram at Sportinarium. You can like Sportinarium on Facebook at Sportinarium Media. You can subscribe to the aforementioned Sportinarium TV YouTube page at Sportinarium TV, where you can find a who's who of content, including the Spartan shows in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can listen to Sportinarium.com, and not just the Sports Report, but you can listen to the aforementioned Spartans Boxing Show. You can listen to the In the Fight show from our old friend Mike Lipinski, Women's Fight News, the Eagles Nest Show, Sportinarium Music, Sean's Mix. And Sean, huge shout out to Sean, because he does a phenomenal job with the Sportinarium TV page. I mean, there are so many great people involved here at Sportinarium. Ryan, got to give him a mention. Everybody at Sportinarium, it is a who's who of people. I could go on all day talking about all the great things that Sportinarium does, and especially, most importantly, April the 24th, Sportinarium Events, a very new company, is helping to promote, along with Assassin's Promotions, the Lionesses event, which we're going to see our guest that just came on the show, Nicola the Hurricane Hopewell, fighting, and the Blonde Bomber Holly Tal, and the Battle on the Beach event September 4th. And for more information on those two great events, you can go to sportinarium.com, where you can also find our guest, the co-host of the Spartans Boxing Show, which you can find and also on YouTube at Sportinarium TV. That is Arv Mittoo. Mittoo did a pretty good job in his own right as a fighter, professionally fighting 100 times, and also as an amateur winning the ABA Novice Championship. So Arv Mittoo has done it all. We're tremendously honored to have him on the show. And Arv, I got to ask you then, because I just alluded to it. I mean, we know your pro career comes up a lot, but as an amateur, you did pretty well because you actually won the ABA Novice Championship. I mean, for a worldwide audience here on Sport and Air, what did that mean to you?
That meant everything to me. I was quite shocked I won that. I couldn't believe it. That was probably, the best thing I've done in my amateur boxing career was to win the novice ABA title. And the good thing about that, Tommy, it went in all the local papers in my area. So there was a picture of me, and I still have it in my loft somewhere, actually. I have to try and find that and dig it out. I won that title when I was 19, I think, 19 years old. And it's the best thing that ever happened to me. I was so chuffed when I won that title. Probably the absolute that happened to me. Because of winning that, it was why I went professional after I'd won that. I thought, I can probably do very good in the pros, but it's a different game and it's totally different to the amateurs. As professional, it's all a lot of money involved and that kind of thing. But in the amateurs, most of the time I didn't get robbed. I still got robbed the odd time, but I won quite a lot of fights and I didn't lose very many. So, I'm proud of my amateur career, what I done there. I maybe lost 7 out of 50, not far off 50 sort of thing. So I had a good amateur career, even though I could have gone on in the amateurs and could have won more than what I've won, because I didn't, as well as winning a novice amateur career, novice ABAs, I could have gone on in the senior ABAs, which I didn't do. Because, to be quite honest as well, Tom, it was about having a few quid in my pocket, because having the time where going in life where I had no money, I thought to myself, if I go professional, I can earn myself some money. So things happen for a reason. Again, going with Nobby was a good thing because he paid you well.
It goes back to the point we said earlier where you got to eat. You got to have money to do that. And you made a decision that ultimately put you in that direction to where, you had to live. You had to fend for yourself. I mean, you could have went on and had more success. That's right. Amateur, but you had to do what you had to do.
Yeah, that's right, Tom. That's right. And if it wasn't the fact that I needed money to live, I would have stayed in the amateurs and I would have had greater success in the amateurs, I believe. I really do. And my amateur trainer, I told him this at the time and he understood. My amateur trainer, he was a very good trainer. He actually trained the Olympic lad or the England squad. His name was Bob Dylan. He even trained Anthony Joshua, he did, my amateur coach, because he was my amateur coach and he went on to train the England squad. And when I was going pro, I told him that. He said, I understand, but he would have rather me stay in the amateurs. But, Tom had to do what I had to do. You know what I mean? And it is what it is.
Now, listen, in my book, Arv, you did all right because at the end of the day, you still had a long career as a professional. I know it wasn't, again, the career that most would have hoped you would have had, especially after the success that you had as an amateur, but I still think that there was a lot of success. And I want to ask you this question on what are your memories of your first fight, January 31st, 1996?
Wow. Is that how long it was? Gee, what is my memories? Well, you know what? I went into because I done well in the amateurs. It was a long time ago. I remember that fight very well. When I went professional, Tom, let me tell you something. I was so confident because I had such a good amateur career that I know you should have nerves, but I wasn't nervous. And I thought I'd just done enough. I thought I'd just picked him, in my opinion. But I didn't get the decision. If you watch, hey, listen, Tom, that's on YouTube, that is. You ever watch?
I did.
Alan Boswell. You tell me, don't you think it was close? In my mind, I just done enough to pip him on points. Boxing.
I'm not just saying this because you're on Sport and Area and then you're one of our own presenters and hosts. Watching that fight, I thought you won the fight.
Yeah, as an amateur, my amateur coach said to me, I'll never forget this, if you can work off the jab, go in for your shots and get out, that's how you do it and you won't get hurt. So that's how I always was taught to fight. But the longer you stay in the professionals, they change you. And because of the rounds are longer, they don't want you to do that. They want you to fight a different way, defend yourself differently within the sense of stay closer to him, work the body. It's a different game. The amateurs is more tip-tap. The professional game is more stand there and fight sort of thing. So even though the way I fought as a professional, I would have preferred to fight the way I fought as an amateur. But because the rounds are longer, I said, no, you need to stay confident, stay on your toes, stay a bit flat-footed and stay in close and throw your shots that way. They change you, basically. They change you. But I would have preferred to fight the way I did my whole entire amateur career. Because if you look at my first professional fight, I'd just come out the amateurs, and if you looked, I threw my shots and I'd get out. But later on in my career, I didn't do that anymore. Thought differently.
Well,
Yeah.
there's something that I miss about your career, and I know you get asked a lot about this. And it came up in one of the fights I was watching on your YouTube page. And everybody needs to subscribe to Arv Mittoo's YouTube page at Arv Mittoo 100 now, where they can find footage of Arv and his decorated career. Was I miss the hair, Arv? I mean, do you miss that pineapple-looking hair of yours during your career? Talk to me about that if you miss the hair.
Listen to this, Tom. You know what? I don't miss that hair. I hate hair. How about that? But at the time, I loved the hair. It's funny. I loved that hair, and I had it most of my life. And if you see any footage of me fighting with not much hair on when I was boxing, that was only because I shaved it off to regrow it back neatly. That's all that was. You'll see one or two fights when I fought with that hair. But all that was I shaved it off to restart it again to grow it back nicely. That's all. And at the time, I used to love the hair. Isn't that funny, Tom? You know, all them years I loved having them hair. I love having the dreadlocks. See, you know me now, and I got no hair, but for years I always had them dreadlocks. But it got to the stage where I thought, you know what, I don't like it anymore. Even now with lockdown, it grew really long. My wife, she cut it off for me again, you know. She cut it off for me. Yeah, the wife cut it off for me now. I absolutely hate the hair on my head. And you know, Tom, you give me a day. You take it all off with a cutthroat, but give it a day, it grows back. And there was a stage when I had them dreadlocks to my shoulders. And one day I just thought, you know what, I don't want it anymore. And now I don't like it anymore. I'd rather go around with no hair on my head rather than having any hair on my head. It just seems strange that in all my boxing career I always had dreadlocks, and if you saw me without it, it was just the fact that I had it chopped off to have it regrown to make it be neat, because sometimes it would get out of control. So I'd have go through sort of situations where I'd have it cut down low, and I'd go to my sister, then she'd retwist it all back up for me to regrow it again. So, but I've had it most of my life, Tom. I've had dreadlocks since I was the age of about 17, the age of 17, and I've been without them dreadlocks now, I would say, for about maybe 4 or 5 years. So I've had it since the age of 17, and I've had it. Tom, I'm 50 years old in July, so I'd say coming up 4.5 years, I ain't had any dreads whatsoever. But it ain't because I'm bald, because, you know, a barber said to me, why you got all your hair off? You're not bald. I said, no, I've had a lot of hair all my life, and I just thought I've had enough of it now. I like to walk around with no hair on my head. So that's why, Tom. But, you know, I just had enough of it. You know, when you've had long hair all your life.
Listen, Arv, I've had long hair. I would probably say since I'm a kid, and I'm in my 30s. So obviously for me, I mean, not to say that that's something I'm thinking about, but I mean, I could certainly sympathize with where you were at in terms of how long you've had your hair. And I know it was something that was a part of your career, but I wanted to ask you this question on your career. And I want to get your thoughts on this. And that if I said to you that your career was actually a success, what would you say to that?
I would say it weren't a success. I would say it weren't a success because the reason why I would say, you see, Tom, listen, in a lot of people's opinion, they will say it was a success. But in my opinion, I would say it's not a success because I didn't go and achieve what I wanted to achieve. And that's why I always say it weren't a success. But a lot of people do say, yeah, it is a success. And then also, you know what, Tom, I didn't win as many fights as I could have won. Times where I could have won a lot more fights than I did win, when I could have gone in and fought and think to myself, well, I'm going to probably get robbed, so take it easy and go through the motions. That was my attitude in the end, because there was times where I fought my heart out, but I didn't get the decision. So we got to the stage where I thought, you know what, I'll go in there and throw a few shots, move my head, make him throw a few shots, have a move around, and he'll get the decision. I ain't got to push myself, because if I fight my heart out, the chances are I'm probably not going to win unless it's a stoppage. So then I went through the motions. I thought to myself, you know what, I'll try and do something with this rather than just give it up. I may as well continue fighting. And it was paying me very well. Get to 100 and then call it a day. But, you know, I wouldn't say it was a success to what it could have been. To know, in my opinion, no, it probably weren't. Even though a lot of people say, well, I think you had a good success career. I don't know. It's not to what I wanted to achieve. And that's why I say it weren't.
See, I kind of think it is a success because I could see where you were coming from, and I could see in terms of watching a few of your fights where I could see that maybe some of those judges kind of rigged the fight against you because they looked at the back of your career record, they looked at the back of your fight card and said, all right, Arv's going to lose. Just give the outcome to the other guy. Arv's a pushover. over. But I look at it in the fact that you still kept going. You could have easily, after, I don't know, your 30th fight, your 40th fight, or even after your 20th fight, and said, you know what, I'm done. I mean, listen, RP Davis is a close friend of ours. We had him on the show twice. You interviewed him.
Yeah.
Ballyhooed, but he only fought 13 times. I mean, you fought 100 times. I mean, listen, you still have to go out there and to compete. I mean, listen, Mike Tyson didn't fight 100 times. Evander Holyfield didn't fight 100 times. Sugar Ray Leonard didn't fight 100 times. Oscar De La Hoya is making a comeback. He didn't fight 100 times. I mean, Floyd Money Mayweather didn't fight 100 times. Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua. I mean, we could go down the line, and none of them have fought as many times as you did. I mean, you could have easily walked away and said, you know what? I'm going to give it up. Frigate, I'm going to go on and start a family and have a career. Whatever I'm going to do. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, well, you know what? To be quite honest, Tom, you're right what you're saying. I could have easily done that. But you know what? I went into my career thinking I could have achieved a British title. That's what I wanted to do. And then when I realized how it was, and I was fighting, and on some decisions, I was thinking, why is decisions going against me? I'm doing enough. And rather than give up, I thought, you know what? If I can't do that, and I can't do any good, and I can't win any titles, I might as well try and make a goal. I'll do one better than that. I'll try and have 100 fights. I'm not going to become a champion now. For some reason, decisions were going against me when I was trying. And I thought, what's going on here? And a lot of the times, as you know, Tommy, in Britain, a judge, if it's an area title, you know, or British Commonwealth, European world title, judges. But if they're just like 4-rounders, 6-rounders, 8-rounders, 10-rounders, in Britain, the judge is the referee. Was you aware of that?
I was aware of that, actually. I was aware of that. But very few people would not be aware of that because they wouldn't understand that.
Yeah, it's the only country, I think, isn't it? Because every other country you go in, they all have judges.
Yep.
In Britain, we have no judges if it's not title fight. The referee does it. He has a pocket book in his back pocket. When the round's over, he scores it. Which I don't know about that, Tom. I don't know if it should be better if we just had judges. But in countries, it's the way we do things.
Well, Lakey, I think, can work on that. Well, listen, I mean, Lakey's a promoter now. He's involved with the British and Irish Boxing Authority. So I think that might be something for Mr. Trevor Lake that he can look into, because clearly now Lakey has some power. So maybe we can talk about that, and maybe even we can reverse some of those outcomes for Arv Mittoo. So I think it might be more like...
Yeah, you know what? I'll have a word with him.
I think you should have a word with him, because we're going to let Mr. Lake know about
I will. Yeah, you know, that guy is such a lovely guy, you know, Lakey, such a gentleman to me, you know.
And when I so do I. And when I first spoke with him about 5 months ago, I mean, I was skeptical. I'm like, all right, well, Sportinarium, I'm doing a podcast. I'm mostly covering local college sports here in the New York area. You know, we had some success, but we kind of hit a wall because the pandemic here in New York had impacted a lot of our colleges. A lot of the college sports teams that we had relationships with, they weren't playing, and there was a rule change that had taken place in effect that had sort of limited our access and our support from these colleges. So I wasn't going to quit doing it, but I kind of hit a wall. I had a couple of other presenters as analysts, and not to name names, they don't have followings. They don't have followings. And I kind of felt, what am I doing? But then all of a sudden, I reach out to Lakey after Lakey likes one of my fight post clips. And then all of a sudden we're talking on WhatsApp about a few days later, and about a week later, he's like, do you have any ideas and any advice on how to do Sportinarium? And what would you give as advice as somebody that's been doing it for as long as you've been doing it? And then here we are, we're speaking with you. But we had mentioned this about your career, Arv, at the top when we introduced you. And I wanted to ask you this question and what it meant to you. And the fact that if I would have told you that you had fought 57 fighters who at some point in their career were unbeaten, you fought 14 British champions, you fought 20 fighters who were considered to be contenders, and you were considered to be the first British black boxer to fight 100 times. What would you say to that?
Me? To be quite honest, I'm shocked because I didn't even think or realize that that's what I achieved. So I am shocked by that because, Tom, listen, like I say, I thought I was going to come into boxing and not have as many fights as I had, but I did think I might achieve of winning a title, and that was it. So for you to come and tell me, though, that fighting 14 British champions and, what I have achieved in that way, I wouldn't have thought so, and I wouldn't have thought I'd ever be able to do that. So talking of that, in that way, that is a success because there isn't many people that have done that. So in terms of speaking about that, that in itself is a success. The only thing is, Tom, I would have liked to have won a title or something. But when you come to me and say what you just say to me about that, I think, wow, because I didn't realize that I'd done that. I didn't realize I've achieved that many champions and undefeated fighters. I never realized that. So that in itself is an achievement in that. That's what I think.
Ladies and gentlemen, we definitely think the same, and we know that a rising tide lifts all boats, and Arv Mittoo has been that rising tide, and our boats are going to be lifted because we have him here in the Sports Report talking all things related to his tremendous career as an amateur and professional boxer, and all things related to Sportinarium, the #1 global radio station that we have been a part of now for the past 5 months. And Arv does a phenomenal job alongside the man behind Sportinarium, Trevor Lake, otherwise known as Lakey, as the co-host of the Spartans Boxing Show. So if you are not watching or listening to the Spartans Boxing Show, you are definitely missing out. You need to do that. You can do that here on Sportinarium.com. You can also do that on YouTube by subscribing to Sportinarium TV. And you can also, most importantly, follow on Sportinarium all the great things it's doing by doing so on Twitter and Instagram at Sportinarium. And that is why we are honored to have on here for a few more minutes Arv Mittoo, who does such a phenomenal job on behalf of the station. Him coming on really solidified, I think, this station and our credibility, because having somebody of Arv's resume speaks for itself, and that's why we're honored to have him here on the show talking all things related to his career in Sportinarium. And I am the host of the Sports Report, the Reverend Tom Bryce. And Arv, I know you get asked this a lot about your career, but give me your memories of fighting Junior Witter.
Oh, you know what? How about this, Tom? I went to Bethnal Green to fight, and the fighter I was fighting pulled out. And this is no lie. Junior Witter at the time, he was a world champion. I think he was a world champion at the time. I'm sure he was. What it was, because I had no one to fight, he came to Bethnal Green to watch the boxing, and he was asked, would he fight me because my fighter had pulled out? So we come out of the crowd, got some shorts and some boots, and fought me. How about that then? I weren't meant to fight. I went there to fight, and the fighter I was fighting pulled out. The fighter I was fighting pulled out. And as it goes, Junior was in the crowd and was sort of near enough my weight. So he was asked, would he fight me? And let's not forget, he didn't come to fight. He come to Bethnal Green to watch boxing in the crowd, not to fight me. It's actually on YouTube as well, You
saw some of the clips of that. Junior Witter knew that he did not have a pushover when it came to you. And I think that speaks volumes to the respect that he had for you as a fighter. And somebody else you fought that also went on to have a lot of success was Ashley Theophane. Talk to me about your memories of that fight.
Yeah, I remember fighting him. He had quite a successful career, as I believe, crossing over the pond and coming to your side of the woods. Am I right in saying that?
Yes, you are.
Because he didn't have all his fight in Britain. Yeah, he didn't have all his fights in Britain. He had a few, but majority of his fights he had in the USA, didn't he?
Yeah,
I remember fighting him. But that was quite a close fight. I'd like to see that on. I'd like to watch that fight again. It was a very close one. That was a fight that could have gone either way, I would have thought. If I remember, I'm not too sure. I'd have to watch it again. But I didn't expect him to achieve what he's achieved, because he's had a great career, hasn't he? But at the time, I didn't even think he was going to achieve what he achieved. I remember just thinking he was just another fighter like the rest of them, just to fight and go the distance and they'd give him the decision anyway. But as it goes, he went on to do bigger things and, achieve a lot of things in his career. But at the time, I just put him over another fighter. I didn't think he was going to be anything special. Neither did I think he was anything special at the time. I just took it as another fighter. When I fought Junior Witter, I thought to myself, I better be careful here because I know this guy can eat a bit. When I went in, Tom, with Ashley Theophane, it was just like another fighter who I was fighting. I didn't, think or take it serious. And then to see what he achieved after, I thought, wow, this guy's done very well.
Well, listen, he did very well because he fought Arv Mittoo, because Arv Mittoo was definitely no pushover in the ring. And Arv, after speaking with you here over the past little while, I've been wondering this question, especially now that we're involved with with boxing and sportinarium events, and also obviously with the big fight again coming up here in April the 24th, the Lionesses card and the old lady event. And we had just spoke with Nicola the Hurricane Hopewell, obviously right before you joined us here. And have you ever considered coming back into the sport and maybe becoming a trainer?
No, you know what? I'll tell you what, Tom. Did you know I had a seconds for about 6 years in date, but I never used it. I never even used it. I met them run out. I renewed them. I renewed the seconds, the British Boxing Board of Control seconds I had before. I renewed it for about 6 years and I never used it, so there was no point. And then, Tom, I also tried to become a referee, but I failed that because they said I'm making too many mistakes on the scorecard, so I failed that. And
I think, again, goes to my point, Arv. We got to talk to
Then
Lakey about that one. We got to definitely talk to Lakey about that one.
yeah, well, Lakey says I could become a referee under Bieber, but I said Lakey, that was then. I don't really feel like doing that now. I said to him, Lakey says you can become a referee under Bieber. I said, but at the time I felt like that. Then Tom, I don't really feel like that now. That's the thing. You know what I mean? At the time I wanted to be a referee back then in the day, but now I don't really want to be a referee. You change, don't you? You change how you feel with that kind of thing. Yeah, I don't really feel like I want to be a referee right now, or maybe if anything later on I train fighters. That's something I like to do, to pass on knowledge.
Yeah, I think you'd be a good trainer. Yeah, I see. I think from your background and hearing your enthusiasm, whether it's with us or whether it's on the Spartans boxing show with Lakey and Steve and just your overall career, I just think you have too much knowledge to let that go to waste. I think somebody out there could really benefit from your experience because you had a long career as an amateur, you had a long career as a professional. I mean, you understand what to do and what not to do in the sport of boxing. Your enthusiasm is as good as anybody's. You're not bitter about the sport. I kind of think you've almost gotten a second life here with Sportinarium, where all of a sudden I think a lot of people have a lot of interest in you now. I know with us here on the Sports Report, we've had a lot of interest in you since the very beginning. And I kind of think that a lot of our audience is going to be really further interested with you, I think, in terms of what you're up to, what you're doing. So I think almost, Arv, you got too much knowledge to let it go to waste.
Oh, thank you. It's funny how things happen in your life, isn't it? See, where I am now, this didn't intend to happen. Tom, I've been involved with how Lakey, I say it again, Lakey, I'll never forget the man for what he's done for me. Because, I've always liked to be involved and talk about boxing and stuff like that. But I would never have thought someone would got me involved on interviewing fighters with him. It's just so strange how that's happened. Something I'd love to always wanted to do. And Lakey got hold of me and got me involved. It was him what got me involved, not myself. Lakey got me involved.
Listen, Arv, like I said before, Lakey is the Vince McMahon of radio, and he is the Vince McMahon now of professional boxing. So Lakey clearly is a genius in identifying talent and seeing what works, what doesn't work.
Tom, he's definitely a genius. To what he's thought about getting the radio station and doing this and doing that. You're on there. You got DJs on there. We got people talking about boxing. You got people talking about football. I've never seen anything done like this before, and in that situation, that in itself is fantastic. Tom, I've never seen nothing like this before. What we're doing here.
No, we haven't. Listen, and we talked about this a little while ago, Arv. There really isn't anything like this. And I'll say it again. Listen, talk radio here in New York is magnified and ballyhooed, but they don't give an eye to what we do here on this station. It is really revolutionary what we're doing here at Sportinarium, because we have listeners just with us in 8 countries. We cover pretty much every single sport imaginable here. We even do news. I mean, we pretty much do it all. I mean, we've interviewed politicians, professional athletes. We've interviewed champions like yourself. I mean, we've interviewed celebrities. You name a person, the Sports Report has done that. And then the rest of the team here at Sportinarium, obviously with you, with Lakey, with Steve, with Sean, with Adie, with Dale. I mean, it's a long list of people. Susie and Sasha. I mean, Sasha does 2 shows here. Connor and Martin, Ryan, Mike Lipinski, our old friend from the 247 show. I mean, it's a long list of people. It's really incredible. And I think some of the talent here are going to go a long way. I mean, obviously, I think everybody brings something to the table. I think some bring more talent than others. And I love everybody here on the station, clearly. But Arv, I know that we have a few more minutes with you, and there's a lot that we've touched upon your career. We could be here for hours talking about you. But I wanted to ask you, for our worldwide audience listening here on Sportinarium, and you have a lot of moments. I know you have done a lot in the ring, but is there one or two moments that stand out most in your career?
Ooh, I think it was maybe my sixth fight is a fight what stood out in my career. My sixth fight when I in a top of the bill. It was the top of the bill. I thought I won. I was top of the bill on a Pat Cardell promotion, and I thought I'd won, and I lost on half a point, but I won the decision. That's something quite always stands out in my career, and I wish I could get the video of that fight. It's always stood out in my mind. Even now, I always thinking about that fight, and even now I still think about it, Thomas. It was about my sixth fight. I fought an 8-rounder. I was top of the show, top of the bill, and I lost an half a point. And I fought, and I still think in my mind that I'd won, and I still think about it every day.
Let me ask you a question, Arv,
stand out in my
on what
career.
you just said. You said something interesting. I want to ask your thoughts on that. Let's say the outcome is reversed and you win that fight by half a point. Do you think you would have had a different career?
Yeah. Definitely, Tom. Definitely. But after that happened and a few more went that way, I changed. My mind changed to how I thought and thought about things. Tom, there was plenty of times where I could have fought and probably won, fought my heart out. But it was always in my mind that I'm going to fight and I'm going to do enough to win, but I'm not going to get the decision. And that changed everything to how I fought when I fought in the ring after.
How much do you think about the last time you got in the ring?
I'll tell you what now, Tom, I don't really think about it too much anymore, Don't really think about it too much anymore. Because I always said, Tom, when boxing starts, people say to me, Tom, don't you miss it? No. I said, no. And they say, you don't miss it because I miss it. Why are people saying that to me? I said, I'll tell you why I don't miss it. Because when boxing started, I knew there was a time where it was going to come to an end. So I prepared myself for that. And I prepared myself for the end so that when boxing finished, there won't be any look back. There won't be any boxing missed. I won't miss the career I had. I'll be happy with what I've done. Forget about it now. I've done it and it's finished. Time to do something else. So that has always been my opinion on that.
You're definitely doing something else, because you're with us now hosting the Spartans Boxing Show with Lakey, the man behind Sportinarium. And of course, if you want to find out more information on Arv Mittoo, you can follow him on Twitter and Instagram at Fox Mittoo. That's Fox, FOXMITTOO, and find out why Arv Mittoo is one of the most exciting people. He's one of the most charismatic and energetic people, not only on this station, but across anywhere on talk radio and sports radio. That is why we are tremendously honored to have him here on the Sports Report and talk all things related to his career and Sportinarium, the #1 global radio station that we are so honored to be a part of now for the past 5 months. And Arv has been a big part as to why Sportinarium is where it is today. And I got a good feeling we're going to see Arv talking with some of these many great fighters that we are going to have on April the 24th on Fight TV, the Lionesses, the Old Lady event in September the 4th, the Battle on the Beach. And of course, our guest who came on to kick off today's show, Nicola the Hurricane Hopewell, was a huge part of that fight. And Holly Tao, the Bon Blommer, and Chris Boyle, of course, with Xbox Boxing Academy. Got to give him a huge shout out. He also hosts a show here from time to time on Sportinarium. So I want to make sure we recognize Holly Tao and also Nicola the Hurricane Hopewell and Ellie Cullison. So many people here that we have to acknowledge. Susie Ramadan, who came on the show. I know you guys interviewed her as well. So you guys are really doing a phenomenal job. I'm an avid listener. And Arv, I want to give you the floor. I want to give you any closing thoughts. I also want you to plug also anything else from your social media. You can also plug again your Twitter, your Instagram, Facebook, anything you want to share to your many listeners, your many fans out there from your boxing and amateur career, and anything else you want to say to the Sportinarium audience listening here. And I obviously cannot thank you enough for this opportunity. I cannot thank you enough for all that you do for us here and supporting this show and this station. And the rising tide truly lifts all boats, and Arv Mittoo is definitely that rising tide. So for you, my friend, I want to give you the floor. Any closing thoughts? Please plug all of your social media, and I can't thank you enough.
Thank you so much for your kind words. I would like a lot of my friends to follow Sporting Area Media on YouTube. That's what I would really like, because I've got a lot of friends, but a lot of people don't know that I'm doing this new platform with Lakey interviewing the fighters, and I like a lot of friends to like our page and get on it on Sporting Area Media and take a look, and including the stuff you've done on there, Tom, the Eagles with Steve, listening everything what's on there. I like everybody to sort of follow the page and listen.
Everybody will listen to what Arv Mittoo has to say, because he is one of the most, again, charismatic and energetic people that I know. And he is somebody that is going to help Sportinarium to continue to rise to the heights that it is going to rise. And everybody, again, needs to follow Arv Mittoo on Twitter and Instagram at Box Mittoo. Everybody needs to listen to the Spartans Boxing Show. You can do that on Sportinarium TV on YouTube by hitting that subscribe button. You can also catch the boys on sportinarium.com, where you can find, of course, this show and so many other shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It is truly revolutionary, and Arv Mittoo has played a huge role in that. You can also catch the last Spartans Boxing Show on the Sportinarium TV YouTube page, where the boys just spoke with James Hare. And you can also follow Sportinarium on Twitter and Instagram at Sportinarium, and you can as Arv mentioned, the Sportinarium Media Facebook page at Sportinarium Media to keep up to date with all the great things that this station is doing. And for you, my friend, don't be a stranger. We want to bring you back on the show and talk all things related to the sport of boxing and what you and Lakey are doing with the Spartans Boxing Show. I cannot thank you enough for the opportunity. Congratulations on all the success now outside the ring.
Thank you for having me on, Tom.
Looking forward to speaking with you soon, my friend. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you for having me on your show. It was absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much, brother.
As we're here on the Sports Report, the number one global sports show with the host of the Spartans Boxing Show, that is who was also an ABA novice champion, fought 100 times professionally, and now is one of the top hosts around in all of sports radio. And I am the host of the Sports Report, the Reverend Tom Bryson. Stay tuned for more hard-hitting analysis here on the Sports Report and Sportinarium as we play brand new music from Olivier Laurent, two-time Sports Report alum. And then right after that, we have music from the Superlatives and the legendary Joe Della Sleepy Hollow, as we're here on the Sports Report, the number one global sports show. We're just with co-host of the Spartans Boxing Show, Arv Mittoo. Stay tuned here on Sportinarium for brand new music from the legendary Olivier Laurent. It's going to definitely feel and taste like butter.